publisher, creator of Make Magazine, which is in your handbags. And I encourage you to crack it open. And if for some obscure reason you say it's not for you, feel free to find a teenager and put it in their lap. I also create Maker Faire, which is in the Bay Area, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a few signs and symbols of that here. I'm here to talk about prototyping and have a small presentation, but I want to get you engaged in activity first. Just pretty easy. You have some index cards on each table. I want you to grab one of the index cards, and on one side of the index card, right in the middle, I want you to put your Twitter ID, your Twitter name. You all have Twitter names, don't you? What? All right, so first lesson in prototyping is you have to create a following. You have to create people who care about your ideas, all right? And what I want you to do here is write something, if you don't have a Twitter idea, make one up and then you can go get it later on. And on the other side, I want you to write your idea in 140 characters. Whatever the idea was in your design collab, an idea in your head. If you don't have your own idea, steal someone else's. Help them promote it. 140 characters. It's 35 four-letter words. So while you're doing that, if this is up and running, can we get here? Okay. So in order to distract you, because I don't want you just focusing on this, I'm going to play a video of Maker Faire. And hopefully, you'll see lots of other people are making things that might inspire you. Keep writing your idea down. Okay, that's Maker Faire. And next year, it's May 19th and 20th in the Bay Area, and we're actually going to be doing it in Detroit, Michigan in the summer, and in New York City in the fall, in September, end of September. So you've written your idea down. What I'd like you to do is pass it to the person next to you. And that person, I'd like you, on the back where the Twitter ID is, I'd like you to write your own Twitter idea, and then pass it on. Now, I don't want you to just pass it around the table. I want you to pass it between tables. So they're critical people at certain junctures that connect you to other networks, okay? So those people like this woman here, you have a natural connection to that table that is hard for others to reach. So what I'm really just trying to model a little bit for you here is to just, the most important thing in prototyping is really getting an idea out there, and it's really like a conversation. It's talking about that idea. So, you know, what you are trying to do, and what all those people at the fair are trying to do, is they had an idea in their head, and they're trying to get it out of there, and they're trying to get it into someone's hands. And you're doing that right now. You're getting an idea into other people's hands, and you don't know what exactly will come of that. Okay? Keep passing them along. Don't stop. It's fine to talk. That's far more important than what I have to say, is to pass your ideas around and get lots of people to see them. You're trying to get things in other people's hands. That is essentially what I want you to remember from prototyping. You're giving it away and giving it to someone else. So, ideas are seeds. All right? And we like to think of seeds as sort of singular, but seeds come in clusters. They are actually the result of a mature fruit. All right? Does anybody know what this is? Pomegranate. Do you mind opening that for me? Actually, getting at seeds is hard work. Seeds are messy. Seeds are wet. Pomegranate seeds can make your hands look like you've been working with blood. So keep passing your cards around. So now you could talk about lots of things when you think about a project, but I want you to focus on the seeds. You could talk about the intermediate stages of growth. You could think about that. But things start to get bigger and bigger and bigger and more complex. I don't want you to necessarily think of outcomes. What does this mature thing look like? Think about the seed and pass the seed around. Okay? So, how are you doing on that pomegranate? It's hard, isn't it? Yeah. So my seed for Make Magazine was, I was sitting in a cab one day and I said to Tim O'Reilly, hey, what about a magazine that's Martha Stewart for geeks? And it caught enough of the idea that I was getting at that people could respond to it and talk about it. Okay. Remember to write your Twitter ID on the back. You should have, you want to see who else saw this idea. Okay? The other question I'd like you to ask yourself, have you seen something like your idea before? Is it in some other form that you could reference that people would know? So when I was thinking of Make Magazine, I went back and looked at old Popular Mechanics and Popular Science magazines of the 50s and actually back to the 1920s. And I said, you know, a generation grew up on Popular Science and Popular Mechanics and learned how to make things. And today they don't actually talk about the details of that. They don't talk about projects to do. But that Popular Science idea was something I could connect to my idea and connect to a lot of other people. So one of the things we had to do initially is I wanted the magazine to have projects, things to do, and I needed to find a really good project to start with. And this was our first one. It was kite aerial photography, to take a rig, put a camera in it, and then send it aloft on a kite to take pictures of the ground below. There were all kinds of setups and all kinds of ways we could have done it, but we ended up eventually with our first issue of the magazine, We put that on the cover, and that's our popsicle stick-based rig that you could make for a couple bucks to take a single picture from a kite up in the air. So my point is your idea leads to different stages, but at each point you're trying to connect that to other people. The other reason that I'm using Twitter as an example today is sometimes your best allies in creating a new thing are people that don't work with you. They're not in your organization. They're not your friend. They're people who connect to the idea, and they have a passion and an interest, just like that peer-to-peer example we just saw. They came together, not because they went to college together, they lived in the same area, or they worked for the same organization. They liked the idea, and they connected around that. And that's essentially what you're trying to do. So let's see if this works, hopefully. I want to show you a really different example of creating something.
With this human sewing machine, stitching together 2 sheets of expanded polystyrene. The needle goes through the material.
So if you were going to build a prototype of a sewing machine, this is one way you might build it.
The needle comes out and the stitch is pulled tight, and the material is pulled forward. Every lock stitch machine has these 4 movements: pushing through the needle, passing the loop round the bobbin, pulling the stitch tight, and moving the material forward.
So I think that's a real ingenious way to get across how something works. And there's 2 ideas that I like to think about. One is anything you can do to get away from paper is a good thing. Even if it's people standing out and acting out a prototype, like link hands together and imitate a web page. I mean, figure it out. It's more interesting. It gets an idea across. Second that they did there is they changed the scale. They made something really big, much bigger than the actual object that they were working on. Sometimes we end up in really small containers trying to build prototypes. We're drawing very small, or we're building with very little components. How can you make it bigger so people see them? And so a couple just obvious things. What does it look like? How does it function? Are usually the things that you're trying to get at in a prototype and conveying it. But the thing that, I use this image here because what does it make you want to do? Touch, right? You want to touch this object and figure out, does it move? Is it going to, prick my fingers? So in a sense, what we're trying to do is designing for interaction in a prototype. You're trying to generate feedback. And while you could show someone a piece of paper and ask them what they think, not everyone will be good at verbalizing what they think, and they might not even tell you what they think. But if you can observe the interaction that people have, right, with an object, if you can watch them do something, it generates a different kind of feedback. Now, we all know this. If you're a car salesman and you want to sell a car, you get a person in the car as fast as possible. And where do you put them? In the back seat? No, you put them in the driver's seat. You let them own the car. So you really want to set up prototypes so that people that are trying it really get to own that experience. They're not just watching you drive the car. So it's something to think about. And this is something I'd like to do, particularly in the context of what you're doing in the next session. Can you hack it together? Can you, hack just means being clever. Can you use what already exists and kind of come close to what that idea looks like? This isn't particularly pretty, but the shapes are there, some of the electronics are there, and it allows you to get to a first stage. It may not be the ultimate stage that you're designing for here. And finally, does it fly when you let it go? When you back away from the driver's seat, when you take it away, whatever you're putting out there for someone else to grasp, does Does it do what you thought it would, and are they able, is this prototype able to do something on their own? And I think the other question, you kind of, not just as a fly, but does it matter? Does it really, what you've built, does it create a real connection? So one of the ways you're doing that in this, and are you guys still passing these around? Make sure you get to see lots of ideas, because that's one of the ways you, as a human, get to understand the context of your own idea. Are there lots of other ideas out there? Are there better ideas than the one you have? And maybe, or there are alternative ideas, and maybe there are ways of linking them together. But I think oftentimes we do have to ask that question. Does the prototype, is it just kind of an intermediate product to some other idea? And so the point I want to get at, too, is that prototypes can be seeds for new ideas, new ways of thinking. And how many, let me ask you, how many in this exercise filled out more than one card? Very good. You're not limited to one idea. Seeds don't grow by themselves. They are in clusters. What happened to, hey, these guys opened it up. It's messy, but they got the skin off. They peeled back the different fibers there, and you can see there's lots of seeds here. And that's ultimately where you're headed, is to be in a place where there are lots of ideas, lots of seeds, lots of prototypes, lots of things to do. And then, as I said, finding other people who are doing that. So I'm not going to read these for you, but just that idea of iterating through prototypes fast. They don't matter. They just throw them away. It's like eating seeds. You just eat one after another here. Get into the habit of doing that, and keep it light, keep it quick. It's a conversation. It's just a few words. You only have a minute or two. That's the Twitter idea. You only have a little bit of time to connect to someone. Do it with that and see what happens. Listen. The most important thing I think I did in my discovery around Make is when I said, it's like popular mechanics for the 21st century, people started talking about what they were doing, what they were up to, either themselves or a friend or a relative. And that's the kind of response when people begin to give you that kind of detail and feedback. The other thing, and you're in a great room for doing this, as you know, Make is about DIY or do it yourself. But it's really not about doing it yourself. It's really doing it with others in the context of others. And our social networks allow us to connect to lots of people very easily. And sometimes you might feel stymied within your organization or within where you are that you can't get an idea to germinate, to get started. And I think just find other people that are doing this. Find it, first of all, you're not alone. Lots of people are in that experience. But get it out there, make it visible, and let people interact with it. In fact, what you're really trying to do is something we learned in kindergarten. Show and tell. Thank you very much.